a lot of these guys will start to hit free agency. And the longer you wait, as many teams have found, the more expensive these guys might become.
Okay, time for an Orioles checkup, and we're welcoming Matt Weyrich to the show, Orioles beat reporter for the Baltimore Sun. First time on FT joining us here. You can follow him at by Matt, Weyrich. Matt, great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us. Let's start positive note, okay? Jackson Holliday looks like he's a different ball player from those first 10 games when we saw him up in the bigs. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he certainly looked completely different from the player who got off to a horrible start, hitting under 100 there in his first stint with the majors. Goes back down in the minor leagues and makes a few tweaks, gets a little bit lower in his swing, starts to change his approach a little bit towards fastballs. And so far, it has really paid off. 4 home runs here in his second stint, 3 of which have gone 400 plus feet. He's not a big guy. He's not somebody who is going out there and swinging out of his shoes, but he's got a great swing. And we're really seeing now why he was named the number 1 overall prospect coming into the year, and why, it's a little bit puzzling maybe that he has slipped in the minds of some fans just because of one small stint at the Smart of the Year.
Hey, Matt, Cam Maben here. I want to stay on that topic because one thing that I was a little bit, not want to say concerned about, because it's always tough for a young guy. And a lot of young guys, very, very few young guys come up and just tear the scene up and rip the cover off the ball. But one place that I thought Jackson Holliday would need to go work on was making sure he got on the fastball. And even the other day in that Blue Jay series, the homer that he hit, you saw his 0-2 count, and they were trying to go fastball up. Was there a conservative effort to make sure that he got on the fastball and make sure that he got a good pitch to hit? Because he did a good job of handling breaking balls, but it was the fastball that was really, really struggling with.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something they identified as a major problem. It really kind of it made him look worse, I think, than he actually was at the plate, just because he couldn't catch up to that high velocity. And it just kind of looked like a player that he hadn't been up to that point. So as I mentioned, he got a little bit lower in his stance, and that just he was very upright there. If you notice back when he was at Fenway in his first couple of games, standing up very straight in his stance. Now he's a little bit more into his legs, and it's kind of put him in a more athletic position and given him a chance to catch up to that high fastball when he does recognize the pitch, being able to react just a little bit quicker. And it's made all the difference, really being able to get to the barrel of the baseball, because he's not just hitting these home runs, he's getting a lot of solid contact overall. He's not hitting the ball into the ground, which, he was struggling to make contact basically altogether in his first stint. But anytime he was putting the barrel to the baseball, it was going straight into the ground. So he's been able to lift it a lot better. And I think now you're just kind of seeing the progression of that confidence. Okay, I can do this. Okay, I can get the barrel to the baseball and lift this thing. Now I just got to keep doing that. And he's been able to build off of it. And honestly, such an impressive stretch. 3 straight home runs, or 3 straight games with a home run, I should say. Youngest player in American League history to do so. I mean, he is in a league of his own right now, and the sky's the limit for this kid.
Matt, on a little less positive note, with as good as Jackson Holliday's doing, what's going on with Grayson Rodriguez, his lat injury, and can the Orioles sustain any more injuries to keep up with the Yankees?
Man, they've been hit hard with injuries, particularly on the pitching side, and losing Grayson Rodriguez really for any amount of time is a devastating blow. This is a guy who's been basically the number 2 pitcher in the rotation all season behind Corbin Burns, for a rotation that has lost Kyle Bradish, has lost John Means, has lost Tyler Wells, really doesn't have that high-end upside like a player like Grayson has still left in this rotation. So, right now with him going onto the injured list, he's going to miss minimum of 2 starts, but certainly a potential for more. This is a lat strain, same strain that he suffered back in 2022 as a prospect. That injury sidelined him 3 months. Manager Brandon Hyde said yesterday that they're a little bit more optimistic that this is minor, that this is not going to be as big of a deal as that previous injury, but certainly him injuring the same muscle as last time is never a good sign. And it's something where you just have to rest, step away, shut down your throwing program. So the longer that he has to rest this injury, the longer he's going to have to build back up. And, the clock's ticking, only 47 games left to play.
So, Matt, with that said, would you say that Eflin move and that Rodgers move were huge deadline transactions as it looks like now?
Absolutely. I mean, this team needed reinforcements just for its depth. I mean, Albert Suarez has stepped in really admirably this year as a guy who kind of came out of nowhere. Dean Kramer is someone they believe in, but has had up and down results this year. And beyond them, I mean, Cole Irvin got DFA'd and is in AAA as a potential option. They have one of their top pitching prospects in Cade Povich, who has struggled a little bit here in his first couple of starts in his major league career, but they really don't have any other proven major league talents. So to go out and get Eflin, a guy who has pitched in the playoffs before, has shown that he can stay healthy and give you at least 5-6 innings every start, I think is huge. Trevor Rogers, I feel like, is more of a long-term upside play, but had been pitching well in his last 10 starts coming over from Miami and pitched pretty well yesterday. Got 5 innings, 2 earned runs against him against the Blue Jays. So, they're hopeful that they can kind of help him rediscover his 2021 All-Star form. But overall, those moves were necessary. Did they go out and get, an all-star bona fide ace for the top of the rotation across Burns? No, none of them moved. No Taras Skubal, no Garrett Crochet. But the Orioles had the farm system to make those moves. So if they really had wanted to, they could have dug deep and tried to make an offer that one of those teams couldn't refuse. But at the same time, if that offer had to include a guy like Jackson Holliday, they wouldn't have him, who's tearing up the ball right now, and Kobe Mayo, who just got called up last week.
You saw, I'm guessing you saw Rogers' comments, right? When he got traded over from the Marlins about the analytics, and then he went out and pitched great his second start. Do you think it was just that, or was it the change of scenery? Because what are the Orioles doing, like he said, that the Marlins and other teams are doing?
Well, they said that one of the things that they came to him was talking to him about his delivery, working on some mechanical things, but also pitch mix in general. How he attacks hitters with his fastball. It's a fastball that has lost a couple of ticks in velocity over the last few years, but it has still maintained a lot of bite. It's got a lot of movement on it, and it's something that I think we saw in Miami. He was starting to use a bit more, and I would expect that trend to continue. Maybe he got away from it just because it was losing velocity and didn't feel as confident in it, but he's a guy who is able to strike out hitters with that fastball despite the lack of velocity because of all the other pitches that he can mix in there. So, I don't know if they're necessarily throwing a bunch at him right away. I wouldn't imagine they're going to try to overhaul things too drastically midseason, especially when you're talking about mechanics. Trying to make a change like that in August when you're in the middle of a pennant race is a tall order. So we'll see how quickly something like that gets implemented. But certainly, the Orioles just a few years ago were a team where when players would leave, they would say the same things about going to the other teams, about how they're getting a lot more information. So I think really it just speaks to how far this organization has come under Mike Elias and how much they incorporate data and analytics into everything they do. I think it's a real remarkable turnaround for this organization. And certainly they believe that Rogers can be a player like so many before him, that they can transform and help him rediscover maybe some of his all-star potential.
Big shout out to America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh, for helping us eat good during this busy time of the year for us. With HelloFresh, you get pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. It's home cooking made easy, fun, and affordable.
HelloFresh makes it easy, even for picky eaters like Scott. There's a changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from each week. Customize it to fit your taste. There's protein and veggie swap options too. The recipes are easy to follow. Just choose your delivery day, open your box, cook, and eat.
My house is busy with sports, but family dinners are important. My fam eats better, healthier, and we cook so much easier with HelloFresh.
And for a limited time, kids eat free. Go to HelloFresh.com/FTKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/FTKids. Matt, can you give me any perspective on how ownership is going to change the way that they do business? So the easy example is the Eflin pickup. That never, ever happens with John Angelos as the owner. That doesn't even happen in the offseason, let alone taking on that kind of cash during the season and guaranteeing, $18 million for next year. So is that an indication of things to come for the Orioles where they'll buy on the needs that they have because this is their winning window? I mean, if Corbin Burns isn't signing back with them because he's getting $350 million with some other ball club, then they're going to have to pick up some pitching.
Yeah, I think it's important to put it in the context that this is still a small market team, and they might have some years where they flirt with upper payrolls, but I wouldn't expect them to just dive into the free agent market right away. I mean, you look at this roster that they have right now, it's almost entirely homegrown guys and entirely arbitration eligible homegrown guys. So their payroll, is going to increase no matter what this offseason, unless they start non-tendering a bunch of guys, because a lot of these dudes are due for raises. So I think the big question, obviously, how are they going to replace Corbin Burns? Are they going to continue to dig into their prospect depth, which right now, with all the moves that they made and the promotions they have, they really don't have a whole lot of major league ready talent anymore that they could afford to trade from. I mean, obviously, Kobe Mayo and Jackson Holliday are still prospect eligible, but a lot of these guys, Heston Kjerstad, Jordan Westberg, they're guys who have established themselves now a little bit in the majors. They've come up, they've had some success. The next wave of prospects that they have, Samuel Basayo, he's down in Double-A, and most of the other prospects in their top 30 are Double-A or lower as well. So they're going to have to kind of reevaluate, I think, how they're able to trade from that pool. But then you also have to look at the offense. Anthony Santander, who is due to hit free agency this offseason, do they extend to him the qualifying offer? That's something I don't think I ever would have said under John Angelos, but with new ownership, I think it's certainly within play that they extend that to him, because I don't think they would have wanted him to take it, and perhaps he might have. He's having a career year, 34 home runs. It's a new career high for him, second in baseball, tied with Shohei Ohtani. In the long ball department, he's been one of the best switch hitters of the last 5 years. So are they going to bring him back? I think with the struggles that they've had over the last couple of months, Santander has been the constant, maybe even more so than Gunnar Henderson in this lineup, and really picking up the team in a lot of ways. So, I think that he's got to be a major priority. So there are extensions that fans want, for Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and the like, that certainly that the team is going to look into. But as far as how much they're spending is going to jump, I would expect it to be more of a gradual process as this competitive window swings open further. But they have major holes, and just how much of urgency there is in this ownership group, I think, will be reflected in how they approach the spending in free agency pool this offseason.
Will they extend those guys? Why didn't they already extend those guys? That's what I want to know. Why hasn't Adley and Gunnar been extended? I get Corbin Burns. I kind of get Santander, but I don't understand. There's some other ones you could have made moves for and gotten them done, instead of now every year and every home run that Gunnar hits and every time that Adley does something to help the team win. Guess what? The price goes up and up and up and up. I mean, I just don't understand why the Angelos family and now the new owners have not stepped up and said, "Hey guys, here's a contract. Let's make it team friendly. Let's make it player friendly." A la, Bobby Witt Jr. We just talked about Ketel Marte. We've talked about Corbin Carroll. We've talked about a bunch of guys that have signed these deals. The Orioles just don't seem to be willing to do it. And you said they don't have major league players ready in the minor leagues. Well, a couple years from now, Adley's going to be a free agent. Gunner's going to be a free agent. Then what do you do?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to take any consideration of whether or not to extend these guys into the context of our window of contention and how long can we keep it open. Because right now there's kind of a cap, by around 2029, 2030, like you say, a lot of these guys will start to hit free agency. And the longer you wait, as many teams have found, the more expensive these guys might become. So, now is probably the time to strike this offseason, this winter, whatever, to make a deal like that. I think that it's important to note that, going through an ownership change, everything moves slow as molasses. I mean, probably in the months leading up to the actual sale, the Orioles under John Angelos were probably not trying to take on too much extra money. You don't really want to change your books too much when you're looking to complete a sale and put a price point on your organization. So I have a feeling that probably didn't help any progress toward an extension for any of these guys. And then, new ownership coming in. David Rubenstein has expressed multiple times that he fully believes in the vision that Mike Elias has, and he's going to back him for what he believes is the best long-term success for this organization. He's trying to figure out what exactly the profit margins are of this organization, what the costs look like, what a fair market price looks like for a player. This is something that Rubenstein, not being a guy who has been involved in professional sports to this point, is still learning. So, I would fully expect them to make it a priority to extend these guys, particularly Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holliday. Some of those guys are Scott Boras clients, so that is always a factor. But this is a team that went through one of the longest rebuilds of the last 20 years, put their fan base through an immense amount of losing for a long time. It worked. They turned it down to the studs, and they were able to build from the ground up in a way that I think makes their organization old depth chart, probably the envy of the rest of baseball. But at the same time, you have, what are you going to do from there? This is a different test now for Mike Elias. Everybody wants to play in dynasty mode in college football, going from the studs and building an organization from scratch. But once you start winning, how do you keep winning? This is a completely different ballgame for this Orioles front office, and one that they're still navigating for the first time. So I'm very interested to see, just how much of a priority is, and which players maybe they identify as players that they can build around with the farm system that, although is lacking in major league ready talent, is still pretty deep and has potential to be continuing to churn guys through in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it's a good point. The only way to maintain it is to up the payroll. So it's perfect timing to have the ownership change, because that wasn't going to happen. It was going to be a shorter window than most people anticipated if Angelos was there, because you would have had guys start to get expensive and they would have had to make trades because he wanted the payroll to be nothing. So this is good timing. Look at Houston, look at Atlanta, right? They spend nowadays. They went through that, scrap it all down and build it back up. But those are some pretty solid payrolls. Okay, so with that, let me double click on Santander. What are you seeing this year that's giving him the best season of his life at the perfect time? And yeah, I think they should give him a qualifying offer, and he'll probably leave because they've got depth. They'll spend that money elsewhere, probably on pitching. Is he $100 million plus player in the offseason here?
That's a big question right now, certainly for this front office. And I think, it's tough because I think he's played pretty well defensively in right field, and maybe is a little bit underrated in that regard. He's got a really strong arm, has one of the deepest throws out of the plate from right field this season, and has made some really good catches, including last night, stole a two-bagger away from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that would have been a game-tying hit. So he's making his presence felt all over the diamond. At the plate, got off to a bit of a slow start, but the power was there. I think that was the big thing for him was, low batting average. It kind of stands out on the stat line right now, but I think that's kind of dragged down by what he did, in April and early May. Since then, he has really been able to draw more walks and just really tap into that power at a level I don't think he's done throughout his entire career. I mean, June, led the majors in home runs over that month, and has really just carried it over here to now to being a point where it's one of the best seasons at probably the best time for him to have. So I think the question of what he signs this offseason comes down to, what do teams view about his defense? He's played first base in the past. Is that where scouts maybe see him playing long term? Do they see him being able to stay in right field? And he's not the fastest guy in the world, certainly. And maybe that's where when you move him over later in the deal. But if my guess would probably be around a 20 to 25 million AAV, maybe a 3 or 4 year deal with a team option at the end, depending on how teams view his defense. If teams are really confident in his defense, sure, then maybe there's room for that to get up to closer to 30. But I think that regardless, whatever team does sign him this offseason, whether it be the Orioles bringing him back on a qualifying offer or someone else signing in free agency, with Juan Soto being at the top of the market here, I think that might be honestly the biggest domino that could affect Santander. Is he might be the biggest consolation prize for a team that misses out on Soto, and maybe that causes his market to expand as well, as teams look to maybe overspend a little bit to nab him to avoid missing out on the big piece.
Okay, Matt, Scott loves role play. Okay, he loves the role play on this show. So I want you to role play right here. You're going to play Brandon Hyde for me. You have a 1-run lead in the 9th inning of Game 5 of the division series against whatever team you guys are playing against. Who closes the game out? Actually, let's back it up. You have a 1-run lead in the 7th inning, and you have to get through 7, 8, 9 of any team in the American League playoffs. How do you order that? What's the order of your pitchers you're using?
I mean, I think if I'm Brandon Hyde, it comes down to the pockets. Are they going to have pockets of lefties, righties there in the later innings? That certainly could play a role in whether we see, Danny Coulombe, I think is a big name to mention here, because he is out right now with an elbow injury, but they're hoping he comes back in September. He was a huge piece for this team. I think one of the most underrated setup men in baseball. If he is back, I think he has the 8th inning. He's a lefty. Maybe they go lefty righty, depending on Yunier Cano and how comfortable they feel with him. I still feel like they are the two top relievers in this bullpen for the 7th and 8th innings. Obviously, they went out and acquired Sir Anthony Dominguez, who has been very good, and Gregory Soto, who has been very bad, but each throw from the right and left sides of the mound. So I think that, as we get close to the postseason, maybe a preference might emerge for Sir Anthony Dominguez. I would not be surprised if we start to see him being a candidate to pitch in the ninth inning with Craig Kimbrel's recent play. But at the same time, I think that right now that they've gone through some ups and downs with Kimbrel this year, as many teams have over the last 5 seasons. He's had some immaculate stretches, and he's had some 3 or 4 straight outings of clunkers. And right now, they're in kind of the rebound process of that he's through the woods on his clunkers, but they haven't yet really thrown him into safe situations again. I expect they will here over the next few weeks start to put Kimbrel back in safe situations and see if he can ride another hot streak through the postseason. So if I had to guess, I'd say that Hyde does go with Craig Kimbrel in the ninth, and then some combination of Ynier Cano, Danny Coulombe, and Sir Anthony Dominguez in the 7th and 8th. They'd love if Gregory Soto could be that guy as well, but he has some work to do in that department. But if Kimbrel should falter, if he does run into some of his well-documented issues in the playoffs, I would imagine that Danny Coulombe would be a prime candidate to get save opportunities. And Ynier Cano, I think, is probably on the roster right now among healthy players, the number 1 choice without Kimbrel available.
Okay. Satisfied, AJ?
I am. That was a lot of options. So he was like, he's like, maybe we can bring back Jim Palmer. Maybe we can get Greg Olson. Maybe Ben McDonald throws an inning. I mean, there was no most teams go into the postseason and they're like, all right, Mariano's throwing the 9th. Jeff Nelson's throwing the 8th. Mike Stanton's throwing the 7th, whatever it is. Now you look at we just talked about the Padres, right? They have Scott and Suarez and Adam and all these other options. The Orioles are like, all right, we're going to pick a dart and we're going to throw it, and whoever it lands on today, that's who's got the 9th. All right, let's go, guys.
Yeah, that's true. Riding the hot hand. That's why we asked it, because that will be
it's going to be a question.
The microscope's going to be on what happens there, and if they do blow late inning leads, there's going to be scrutiny over not getting more out of the bullpen at the trade deadline. So we'll see, but it's a good question. A lot of things going right for them. So Matt, great to have you on here for the first time. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thanks, fellas. Anytime.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.